Wonderful. So welcome to another episode of the Testing Ground TIC Talks, a podcast where we discuss all things TIC with the experts who are providing technical expertise and driving growth across multiple sectors. TIC impacts every industry and every product that we interact with. TIC companies, in my eyes, are the unsung heroes that keep our world moving, but most importantly, safe. And then also, I will uncover the human side of executives in high pressure environments, and of course, taking it off course with Harry questions. For today's episode, I am very grateful to be joined by Mike Chaudron, TIC expert and current Vice President of Sales and Customer Success with Green Seal Incorporated. Mike, thank you for being on.
Thank you, Harry. It's an honor to be here. I love your podcast, and I really love the TIC focus also. So it's terrific to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute no-brainer, Mike. So yeah, very grateful that you could take part in this.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, as most of these, as every podcast has kind of unfolded, we kind of take it back to the last episode with Stephanie Gruen, and the first question always starts with, what did she leave, for the next guest, and obviously that is very luckily to you. So. The question from Stephanie was, how do you retain your staff in this kind of industry? I
love the Stephanie episode, and I thought that was a terrific question. I'm sure it'll be a downgrade when you get to my question at the end, but a great question. And to Stephanie's point, it comes down to several things, but primarily culture. And she mentioned that. So I think what you have to do is you have to create a culture that the members of the team are as excited about the success of the team as they are their individual success. There's a word called mudita, and mudita means reveling in the success of others. So to really create a team that retains but is bought in to what you're trying to accomplish, is they've got to be as committed to the success of the team and the others as themselves. So that comes down to hiring the right people. Mm-hmm. But if you can hire for not only attitude and aptitude, then you can build that kind of team. So that's one thing. The other thing is and here at Green Seal, we're a mission-driven organization, but employees, staff members, they want to buy into something bigger than themselves. And so you've got to have a mission committed to success. So again, Green Seal is pretty easy, but having something they can buy into is important. And then the last thing is, it's really important for you to have a career path for the people on the team, that they can see what's next. Now, there are some people that simply want to be the best they can be in the role they're in. I had an inside salesperson at DNV who that's all she wanted to do, and she was great at it and worked at improving, as opposed to there are some people that want to be the CEO in 10 years. So you've got to make sure you've got to know your individuals well enough to create a good career path for them. And then the last thing is, you got to make it fun. I mean, work is hard. So, it's important that the team enjoy each other and that they have a little bit of fun, be it, a Masters pool this week for the tournament, an NCAA basketball pool, some team building things. I think that's really important. So when you bring all of those things together, I think you can build a team that wants to be there and will perform. And that's how we've retained people. So great question.
Super. Yeah, very good one. And I think you mentioned their Masters, and I think it's only worth us mentioning what kind of top you're wearing, Mike, to celebrate.
So I'm wearing a Masters employee, Augusta National employee pullover. My son has a connection who works there, and he was able to get two of us one of these pullovers. So they're not available, and it's Masters week. So I wanted to wear the green. So it's really pretty cool. It's one of my favorite pullovers, and in Houston you don't get to wear pullovers very often during the year.
Yeah, maybe at the time it's currently for you, with it being a bit chilly in the morning. But
yeah, absolutely. I wish I was in Augusta right now and getting ready for the par 3 tournament and all of that. So should be a great week. I'm excited about that too.
Next year, yeah. But I think you put on made a really good couple of points there. I think has to be fun. Individuals have to be motivated to want to go to work. But then you're thinking about the career progression. Are they there to build something, or are they there for a paycheck? And I think with especially the TIC industry, you're You are changing the way that products are going into the hands, obviously making it safer, and obviously now a green seal, more kind of, looking at hotel certification, things like that. So people who like to go on holiday or they want to ensure, where they're staying safe, or people traveling for business. So it's very interesting, but very, I couldn't agree more. So
it's a great profession. I know we're going to talk a little more about the profession, but I mean, it's just been really good to me, and I'm committed to it, and I think it's really good. So I'll tell people that might want to get into the TIC industry. Your mom won't understand what you do, but other than that, you can really make a difference in the world and in factories and safety and projects and all of that. And that's important. So I hope that the TIC industry, as we evolve, will continue to put the importance of what it means to be a TIC company.
Super. And kind of, we're talking about, the TIC industry, and, I'm always interested to hear, how, and obviously with you as well, Mike, I'm interested, how did you end up, in the TIC industry? Did someone influence your move, or was it just an opportunity that arose?
So nobody influenced it to get into it, but I had some strong influences once I got into it. So just real briefly in my career, after university, I was in the financial services community for 10 or 12 years, and stockbrokers, bank trust departments, that type of thing. And ultimately, I got tired of little old ladies calling me on Sunday morning wanting to know where their treasury bond payment was. And it was good. It gave me good experience. It helps me with my 401k now. But so transition to the environmental sector, primarily selling equipment and doing some consulting. And in that space, I worked for Eastman Chemical, and we sold microbial testing equipment. Well, they sold the division off, but NSF was one of my customers. So I went to NSF and said, hey, you're looking for sales leadership. So NSF hired me to lead the North American sales for their management systems area. And the influence really got strong there. I had a mentor, the late Randy Francisco. And Randy taught me a lot about TIC, but more importantly, how to be a good leader and a good manager. And I still use some of the things he taught me today in that. So Randy Francisco had a big influence on me. And once I got the bug of TIC, there was no looking back. I mean, there's nothing better than walking the floor at Boeing or into Parker Hannifin factories or food equipment areas. It doesn't matter. It's just really a cool job. So that's what got me into it, and it's kept me in it.
Lovely. Yes, it's always interesting, from other guests who have been, on the podcast. It's mainly, obviously it's an interesting industry, but really it's the people, isn't it? I think, TIC is, there's a plethora of really talented individuals, and I think that's a big reason, so many people are still in it today. And that leads on very nicely actually to the next question about, how big, can the TIC world get, the industry?
They can get very big, but here's the thing: the TIC world is at a crossroads right now, especially the certification part. So the market is at risk of being commoditized, and that is a huge risk that I don't think we want to go down. People shouldn't want to just have a certificate on the wall because they want to sell stuff to Ford Motor Company. So it's continuing to grow strongly, but there have been some events of certified organizations, be it oil rig disasters or airplanes or whatever, all of which had quality or environmental certification in place. So the market needs to make sure that type of thing slows down and there's integrity in those certifications. And I am not saying there wasn't integrity in any of those certifications, but perception becomes reality. So TIC can continue to grow, but we in the industry are going to have to continue to show a path. There's a trend towards self-certification, which is a bad idea. I mean, audit firms don't audit their financial audit firms don't audit their own auditing, and companies should not audit their own. But when they feel like they maybe have a better quality system than they can have with an ISO 9001, then that's a risk. So the market can continue to grow if the value of certification and testing by a qualified third party is still there. If you lose that, we're in trouble. And you're already seeing low single-digit growth on some of the standards in North America now. And I'm talking primarily quality. So it's at a crossroads. And I think the market is moving in the right direction, but they can't look back. And there's a trend now towards publicly traded companies, which tends to be more earnings focused than mission driven. And I think there needs to be a bit of both. So I know that was a long answer, but I think we're at a critical point. It can grow or it can wither and go away. And now's the time to decide.
Do you think that with the likes of individuals who have maybe been, auditors, making, developing their own consultancy, having that, does that almost limit the growth? Because then it just becomes a little bit more fragmented, doesn't it?
It does. And I think, but you hit on something important, and that is the auditor pool. If you look at, the average age of an auditor in a lot of companies is over 50 years old because of the experiential requirements to become an auditor. And what that means is it's aging and it's going away. There's more aerospace demand than supply right now in auditors because of the experiential requirement. So the industry also needs to figure out a way to bring people in. And this ties into one of your other questions, but there needs to be a career path for younger people into the auditing part of TIC. And I know the University of Maryland has a program right now to have students come out as a qualified ISO 45001 auditor, which is a step in the right direction. But I think that's something. And then again, consulting is much more lucrative than auditing. A consultant might charge 2,000 pounds a day, and you may only get 1,500. That person may only make 500 by doing the audit. So they like to do both, and that's where TIC companies' relationships with consultancies is really important. It's something that I've always put a lot of emphasis on because it can help grow business from there. But you bring up a really good point.
It's tricky. I think firsthand kind of we've done a lot of medical device recruitment, and you have to have certain years at a medical device manufacturer, but it can't be too long ago. And then if you're looking to plug and play someone, they've got to work for a notified body. It all depends on what codes they've got, what education. So it's
challenging out there, and so what you have now, and this is a big generalization, but for the most part, auditors tend to be in their second career, especially in aerospace and medical. So they go work for Lockheed for 20 years. 30 years, retire, and then work 3 days a week as an aerospace auditor. So I think that's a pretty good model, but what's going to happen is as that slows down, the workforce is getting smaller, the pool for qualified auditors. I think the industry has to take a look at the requirements for entry because you need the experience, but you also need to have the auditor. So some type of mentoring program could also work without the experiential. If you had to trail an aerospace auditor or a medical device auditor, a 13485 or something, you had to trail them for 2 years as a mentor. You could be a good auditor in that space.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that it's really important for the market to watch the workflow. I know at one of the companies I was at, we did an analysis, and the average age of the auditors were 54. And it was the vast majority were subcontract auditors. That's just the way it works here in North America. And that was a major risk to us, in our SWOT analysis for the health of the industry because it was getting older. And I happened to be 54 at the time, and I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. But you've got to lower the age of the auditors, and you do that by bringing in new. So again, a really important part that I don't think is getting quite enough attention by the industry right now.
Excellent. So great. Tell me more about Green Seal then, Mike.
Perfect. Well, I'm in the green today, partially for Green Seal in the Masters, but Green Seal is an amazing organization. We're ultimately an eco-label company. So, but really we're much more than that. So you can see the green check on products on Amazon, climate friendly pledge, that type of thing. And we certify products and services in 4 areas: cleaning and laundry products, paper and plastic, personal care products, and building restoration. So think paint and coatings. But so we have certifications that are GS certifications for those particular spaces, and we certify them for environmental compliance as well as sustainability. And one thing was really neat: the EPA in the U.S. did a press release on Monday talking about that government organizations in the U.S. are going to be required to use products that are PFAS free. So no forever chemicals. And in that release from the EPA, it listed 3 Green Seal standards and Green Seal. So it was really interesting. So, our mission, we're mission driven, and it's just amazing. So we certify those products in those areas. And then the last thing is our CEO, Doug Gatlin, is a visionary in the industry. He comes from the lead industry, helped start lead. So a really smart, passionate, well-connected guy. And he says that, he has a small but mighty team here at Green Seal. We're a 501c3 in the U.S. and been around since '89, but really on a path to make a difference. So, it's really an amazing organization, and it's a privilege to be part of it. I've been brought in to really create the commercial aspect of it. For the most part, we just worked off of referrals and companies wanting to come to us. What Doug hired me for is to come in and create a commercially focused organization. And I've been here since December, and it's just awesome. So by all means, go to greenseal.org and take a look at what we're doing, and stay tuned, because we've got a couple of really innovative things in the works that really could change the way companies and people evaluate the products that they're using in their homes and in their businesses. So stay tuned. But I feel really blessed to be here.
Super, and we'll put the Green Seal website in the comments for you, so people can quickly check on that. But no, it sounds great, and you can hear the passion in your voice, which is always a good tell that it's a good company. So
it is, and we've got a good group of people. I was telling somebody the other day, there's no drama here. We're all mission focused and really here to make a sustainable difference in the world, and even to take a leadership position in helping develop those standards is really, really cool. So this is my last stop on my career. I've got a little gray hair here, so there's still runway in front of me, but this is my last stop, and I couldn't be happier.
Nice. No, lovely. That's great to hear. And I imagine there's going to be a lot of checkpoints in which you're going to achieve with Green Seal. Obviously, being a pioneer, especially on the commercialization of your product, is really important, and also customer success. So ensuring that your customers are going to come back and enjoy that.
Absolutely. That's one thing that I'm also looking at, is making sure that our customers have an experience and that they realize the benefit of the mark. So in the U.S., from an industrial standpoint, most federal and state organizations have a mandate to use some sort of eco-label products, be it in cleaning and paint, to make sure there's no PFAS or VOC problem in paints, that type of thing. So we're making a difference in quality of lives, but we're also, I think it's very good for the economy, and that's just perfect to me. So we're making sure that our customers understand the value of the mark. We've even gone so far as to help train salespeople at companies that make products on here's the benefit of the mark, or if you're a hotel organization, what is the benefit of the mark to help bring in conferences and those type of trade shows and events, because most of them now have an eco-label type requirement. So it's cool to work with hotels and cleaning organizations to help them see the benefit. So it's not just pay the annual fee, get certified, okay, Green Seal goes away. We're going to continue to improve to enhance the benefit of the mark for our customers. And we have a kind of a cool statistic. Our average customer has been with us for 11 years. So that's a really long time in the TIC industry. So that allows us to manage the business differently than if we had the risk of everybody leaving at the end of the year. So again, it's a long-term focus and really cool.
Super. And obviously we're talking a lot about there, what the future has in store, but this next question, I kind of want to, bring you back a little bit and, really ask you about, what has been the best project, you've been part of within the TIC world, and, how did, if it is something you can measure, success with, how did you ensure that?
So, I've been fortunate enough to be part of some really amazing projects in my career. And it was actually very difficult to narrow it down to just one. But the one that I'll do would be when I was with DNV, is the SIMS certification, Safety Environmental Management Systems. And this came about because of the Deepwater Horizon incident in the Gulf of Mexico. And so it was a standard that was created by the Center for Offshore Safety. And DNV was the first certification body approved to do that certification. So I was involved in the application process. I was involved in the development of the standard. I was involved in getting commercially ready to do it, getting operationally ready to do it. So we were the first. DNV was the first one to be approved. But then we had to go make it commercially viable, and I actually sold BP their SIM certification. Pardon me, which is really. BP's a good organization, and it had a really bad thing happen. But for us to actually go do BP SIMs was a huge win for DNV, and really gave us strong credibility versus the other providers in the space. So by doing that, we were able to come in and make our investment back very quickly, but also enhance the reputation of DNV, and also help improve the safety. I think the Gulf of Mexico is a safer place now because of the focus on additional SIMS management. And it's a unique standard in that the audit report goes to the U.S. government. It goes to BSEE, the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement. So it was just really interesting. I was sitting in a conference room at BP in Anchorage, and helping them for the North Slope, where they had some assets there. And suddenly BSEE walks into the conference room. And so it was really interesting, because I was like, how do they know we're even here? Because the clock started when you had the audit plan in place. You then had you had 45 days to get the audit plan to them. And we were there for logistics, not to start. So BSEE thought the clock had started. So it was pretty interesting for BSEE and BP's lawyers to come into a room where we're talking to operations people. So it was just a really interesting experience, and certainly one of the 2 or 3 projects I'm most proud about in my career.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one, and obviously one that has made these kind of very, very dangerous and hazardous locations kind of group into that safe. So wonderful, very good. And again, taking you back a bit, and this is one that's probably a little bit that I'm probably being a bit selfish with, because I want to hear and see if I can implement it into myself. But yeah, what has been the best piece of advice you've received and implemented into your daily work?
That's a great question. And for me, this goes back to Randy Francisco at NSF. And what Randy had me do, I used to tell him that, Randy, we've got so much going on. It's hard for me to sleep on a Sunday night because my brain is just going wide open of all we need to do. And he said, Mike, I can help you with that. Before you leave work every day, make a list of what you need to accomplish the next day. And what that allows you to do is to turn work off. And then you come in refreshed. So I've gotten a lot of different, really good advice. But from my standpoint, having that list made on a Friday afternoon means that I can put work away for my family and for the weekend and to watch the Masters, and don't have to be stressing about it. So it seems pretty simple, but I'll tell you, it is extremely helpful, and seldom does a day go by that I don't end my day with what we need to accomplish tomorrow. And that's just really helpful. So it's simple, but I urge you to try it if you haven't done it.
Yeah, well, no, it's time management always been a bit of my kryptonite. So something like that. I've done lists, and I do really think they help, don't they? Because as well, when you come in on that Monday morning or that next day after you've done the list, you can just see it straight away. There's no faffing around. You get your coffee, you get your water, and it's straight to it. So
Exactly.
obviously there's never enough hours in a day, so that helps you try and
It helps
have
you
some more of
prioritize
it.
them too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll even do, okay, so, this is a B priority. So I'm going to get my A's done before I get, and a lot of times you don't even get to the B's, and that just proves to it probably should have been a C. So it helps you really focus on what's important. The other piece of that is I also like to do the most difficult task first thing in the morning, whatever that might might be. So if I'm actually selling, then I'm prospecting first thing in the morning, because you got to prospect every day to be successful. So whatever it is, do the most difficult thing before 8 o'clock, and if you do, then the rest of the day, has a chance to be pretty good. This is not always easy, but I think it sets you up for success.
Yeah, no, wonderful. I think there's I don't know if there's a podcast in England called the High Performance Podcast, and it's run by, I can always remember one, Jake Humphreys. So I can't remember the other guy, but there's a clothing brand, Paul Smith, and the actual owner of the brand's Paul Smith, and that kind of strap line for that podcast was do the right thing, don't do the easy thing. So obviously, it's you can probably put that into a lot of things, and I think move that forward. But
absolutely can. It's never the wrong time to do the right thing.
No.
And so I think, that was really good. So, to do the right thing. And I think that also gets into leadership. From my standpoint, I learned pretty early on that it is important to be nice, but it's more important to be kind. And what I mean by that is a nice person won't necessarily tell you difficult things because they don't want to hurt your feelings. A kind person and a kind leader will have difficult conversations with you because you're committed to their success. You care about them. So I always try to be a kind leader and create a good environment, but more importantly, be committed to a rep's or a direct report's success, and help them, and even have those difficult coaching conversations, because that helps them get better. So that was a real aha moment for me as a leader, is don't be nice, be kind. And that's really kind of the way I look at leadership.
Yeah, super. Very good. Okay, and obviously, looking at your career, Mike, you've worked for UL, you've worked for DMV, and obviously now with Green Seal. Obviously UL is, going into an LOI, not an LOI, but they're going to market.
Yes.
And obviously then it would have been private, but now as well, working with Green Seal private.
Right.
What is it like working in a privately owned TIC company?
My experience has been, I've been fortunate to work for several different types of ownership. So the foundation ownership, in my time at UL, UL had the foundation that owned the for-profit entity. Now, obviously, with Jenny taking them public, but it varied with the type of ownership you had. So if it was purely foundation, it tended to be much longer term focused as far as investments, and still wanting good performance, but they looked at it from the long view. There is a trend now towards private equity being involved in a lot of TIC companies, and that really changes the game, because at that point, private equity starts to treat you like a publicly traded company, which means, it comes down to how did you do this month? How did you do this quarter? It's all about the EBITDA, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a very different dynamic than if you're foundation owned. So it really depends. NSF was kind of a hybrid, because they're a 501c3 foundation, but they have a myriad of for-profit companies. So now UL's done something similar. DMV was 2/3 owned by its foundation, and at the time I was there, it was 1/3 owned by private equity. That's now been bought out, and that really was a challenging 2 or 3 years at DMV, because they had been for 150 years had been a foundation-owned organization, and suddenly to have investors that wanted dividends and performance, it really changed almost the entire culture there. They're a fabulous organization, but it really changed their focus. So it's been unique, because I've gotten to experience in the TIC sector different types of ownership, and it's been really good for my personal development, to understand how each one works from that. So it's an interesting time because of the trend towards private equity in the ticket market.
Well, then you look at Element, and it's been quite a substantial investment with them. So with Temasek.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's more and more, and I get calls regularly from consulting firms that are representing private equity that want to know about the market out there. And so I probably get one request a week of those type of consultations. And it's just interesting because you can see that there's a strong interest from investors into the TIC community. And software is a big deal too that TIC companies are looking to get into, and that recurring revenue model. And I have usually argued to CFOs and to private equity people that certification is as much recurring as software. Maybe not at the same margins, but when you look at a 3-year contract for an ISO certificate at Greensill, 11 years is the average customer. That's recurring, growing revenue. And there aren't a lot of market. You got to keep, if you're selling products or services, you just got to keep selling them. In this case, you still got to keep them and make them happy. But there's the recurring aspect to it that I think is pretty attractive to investment companies.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, isn't it? TIC world, it's repeat revenue, we're seeing a lot of. Yeah, I think we see a predictable, of course, but a lot of companies now, lucky to speak to, a lot of executives and owners of these TIC companies, and I think they're, buy-side brokers are maybe just as annoying as a headhunter. So, I know what they feel like.
I don't know, and I just want to compliment on you on what, the importance of your industry and what you're doing. I always feel like I have a good network, and I first try to hire from my network, but good recruiters that have networks like you and several others in the industry, I just feel very highly about their competence. I view them as friends, and been very, very helpful. So when they call and ask for a referral from me for a search they're working on, I give it to them, and then I will send them good candidates who might be looking to make a change. So I think what you guys are doing in recruiting is critical, and I love that there is a TIC focus by several firms, and for whatever reason they're all in the UK. But that's fantastic. So I applaud you on what you're doing. I think that's important and helps keep the good talent coming into the industry.
Well, I appreciate that. It's not every time we get good, positive feedback. So I'll take that to the grave. So wonderful.
Yep.
And kind of, again, obviously headhunters, lots of questions. It might not have been from a headhunter, and it might have been, even one that, this question kind of one that you provided, but the best interview question you have been asked.
That I love that, because there are sometimes good interviews and sometimes they're just awful. If someone's looking at their phone and not paying attention, that's a waste of everybody's time. So the best question that was asked of me was in an interview one time, and I've since added it, is, tell me the last book you read. And what you have to look at that as is that really gives you an insight into what is important to a person. I had a lady tell me one time, she said, well, you're not going to like this answer, but it's books for 4-year-olds, because I'm a working mom, and what's important to me right now is to read to my children. And I was like, wow, what a great answer, because that said a lot more than she's reading Dr. Seuss. It says that she's got her priorities in order, that she's, her family's important to her. She can turn work off. That was the first thing. And I was like, wow. So that's an unusual question, but I think it really gives one good insight into a person. And not everybody has a book they're reading at the time. So that's why you make it the last book you read. So, I've had people tell me the Bible. I've had people tell me history or whatever it might be. And it gives you a really good insight into the person. So that's one I recommend, and I don't hear it very often, and I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because this day and age it's all about learning and development, and people are always asking for more, but at the same time you have to be showing the efforts that you're wanting to self-develop. So we've got a book club here at Chartered Group, and it's very successful.
It's interesting from my standpoint. I don't tend to read a lot of business books. I tend to read about great leaders. because what I found is that you can learn a lot about great leaders. I'm a Teddy Roosevelt historian, and I love everything about him. He was a great leader, but I tend to read about great leaders and try to learn something from them, as opposed to, having a business book with another strategy of the week type of thing. So, I've learned a lot from. There's a book called Nuts, and it is a business book, but it's about Southwest Airlines, and written by a couple professors, and an insight how they got started and how they treat their employees and their customers. And Herb Kelleher was their CEO, who started the organization on a napkin in a bar in Dallas, and just an interesting character, and really gave me a good insight in that if you treat your employees well, they will treat the customers well. And that was his strategy. And that was just another really good book that taught me, to try to put some of that in place and be a good leader. And I will also say I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink. Extreme Ownership is really good, and that is a business book, but I highly recommend it. When I was at UL, I mentioned it to one of the engineering leaders, and he made all the engineers in medical in North America read the book. So they started calling me going, "Nice job, you big dummy. We got to read this book now." And the sales guy could read, but they got a lot out of it. And they started reviewing chapters weekly, and I attended, and ended up being a really neat thing to align operations and sales. And I still have people call me today about it. I got a text from one of the UL engineers yesterday about it, and talked about, hey, this is what Jocko said. So it's pretty cool to see the impact. And that was 2019. So,
Wow. Okay. We'll have to send me these after, because I'm certainly interested in the one called Nuts as well. So that's good. Not just for the name of it, but yeah. So excellent. And imagine this kind of question might come up to, the next question, to when you are, interviewing other individuals. But what is the best bit of advice? I mean, I asked Steph the same question, and I think it is a really important question, especially if we do have any, aspiring TIC professionals who are looking to kind of ramp up the career. But what is the best bit? What advice would you give to, an aspiring TIC professional?
First piece of advice would be go for it. That it's just a fabulous industry, because you can go into it, do a lot of different things, have a great career, and really make a difference. You touched on quality and safety, that type of thing. It really makes a difference. So the first thing I would say is go for it. Yep. And then find a role that suits your passion, whether it's commercial or auditing or, back office or operations. I mean, there's a lot of different areas of TIC where you can make a significant difference. So the first thing is just go for it, and then go into it with enthusiasm and passion. There are a lot of people that just do it as a job, and that's okay too, as long as they do it well. But I think the people that will have the best careers are the ones who really embrace what it means to be part of TIC. And again, we talk about it at Greensill all the time, to make a sustainable difference in our world. And that's pretty cool. So I would the best advice I can say is go for it. It's a fabulous career path and a lot of opportunity.
Super. Yeah, I think give it, especially there are individuals that we speak to that are just getting into the commercial side of it, and they have big aspirations that they want to be, the CEO, and one day. And I think for some people that's right, and for some people it's just being the best salesperson they can be. So I think you got to just chuck yourself in.
I had a guy at Food Chain that I hired at UL, and then I brought him over to Food Chain, and he was working on his MBA at Notre Dame, and he was one of those that he's going to be a CEO someday, and was just absolutely driven. And then I've got the lady at D&V who just wanted to be the best inside sales rep possible, and it was fun working with both of those types of personalities, and helping them.
Super. And my last question before I hand then the microphone over to you, Mike, and again, a really important one, but how do we keep this industry interesting to the young professional?
I think one, you just got to do a better job of publicizing the industry. What does it mean? I always joke that my mom didn't know what I did for a living until I worked for Underwriters Laboratories, and she could see the mark on her toaster or extension cord or her TV. I think we've got to do a better job of helping young people understand what it is, what it does, and what the opportunity is. I mean, the other side of that equation is the average age in TIC is growing rapidly and increasing. So there needs to be an influx of younger people into the business to keep it viable. And there's not enough aerospace auditors or medical device auditors now as it is. So, and they're not getting any younger. So it's important that they make it attractive and see, and you know what, it is attractive if people would just know about it. So I think in general, the industry needs to do a better job of partnering with trade schools, universities, colleges, that type of thing, to show a career path and what it means. So I think, I served on the IAAR here in North America, the Association of Certified Bodies, and there were conversations around that, but it was a bunch of old guys around the table, including me, and there needed to be an influx of youth. So I know that there are people in the market, the business, that are thinking that, but again, that's another crossroads that TIC is at. You've got to make it attractive. Because it is attractive, but you got to publicize that. Otherwise, they're going to go to work for McKinsey, or they're going to go to work for Lockheed, or they're going to go to work for Apple, that type of thing. You've got to make it attractive.
Yeah, a tricky one to do as well for any industry, apart from, being a professional sportsman or woman, it's, yeah. Okay. Well, excellent. Look, I hand the reins over to you and kind of ask, what question you would like to ask our next guest, and put them under the spotlight first of all.
Well, first, I thought Stephanie's question was extremely good and set a high bar here. So gave this a little bit of thought the last few days. But for me, what I would ask your next guest, since they're coming from the TIC space, is, as I've said several times today, TIC is at a crossroads. So my question is, what does the industry need to do to make TIC viable, needed, and attractive for the future?
Super question, and I'm glad I'm not asking it. So yeah, I'm sure the next guest will be very happy to get their get their episode up for that. But Mike, I really appreciate you making the time to be on on the Testing Ground TIC Talks podcast. It's been a wonderful experience for me, and hopefully the same for you.
It's been absolutely terrific, Harry. Thank you for having me. I really enjoy it. I look forward to the episode dropping.
Absolutely.
Keep up the good work. It's important.
Thank you, Mike, and you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Bye.